In the opening scene, we are introduced to a small house standing alone in the middle of a vast, scorching desert. This is where a man named Ben lives with his girlfriend. Ben works as a local tour guide, helping tourists explore the dangerous desert surrounding the small town. Ben's girlfriend wants to leave for the city so she can continue her education. She asks Ben to come with her, but he refuses because he loves the peaceful life in the desert and doesn't want to leave the job he enjoys. Before she leaves, Ben hands her a handgun and makes her promise to keep it under her pillow every night for protection. She smiles, promises she will, and then leaves for the city. After she's gone, Ben struggles with loneliness and misses her deeply. A short time later, the local sheriff calls Ben with an unusual opportunity. He tells him that Maddock, a wealthy businessman from Los Angeles, has arrived in town and is looking for an experienced guide. Maddock wants to hunt the legendary desert bighorn sheep, an animal that is extremely difficult to track in the harsh wilderness. Since Ben knows the desert better than anyone else, Maddock wants to hire him for the expedition, offering an incredible $8,000 for just a single day's work, more money than Ben has ever been offered in his life. The money was too good to refuse, so Ben agreed to guide Maddock without thinking twice. As they headed into the desert, Ben noticed that hunting was common in the area. However, it was only legal for people carrying licensed firearms. Soon, the two of them reached the most dangerous part of the desert where they planned to hunt. By then, the sun had already set, so they built a campfire and spent the night talking. Ben told Maddock about his girlfriend, who had recently moved to the city, and then shared a painful memory from his childhood. Years ago, he had been stranded in the same desert with his parents after their vehicle broke down. They waited days for help, but no one ever came. His mother kept covering his face with lipstick to protect him from the burning sun. Ben survived, but both of his parents eventually died from dehydration right in front of him. Remembering that tragedy left him deeply emotional. Afterward, both men went to sleep beside the fire. The next morning, they continued their hunt. Along the way, Maddock suddenly began firing random shots for no reason, making it obvious that he had absolutely no hunting experience. Ben angrily asked who had given him a hunting license. Maddock arrogantly replied that he didn't have one and didn't need one because his money could buy anything. Ben warned him that hunting without a license was completely illegal, but before he could say anything else, Maddock pulled out a stack of cash and handed it to him. Ben reluctantly stayed quiet and they continued deeper into the desert. Eventually, they climbed to the top of a rocky cliff where Ben scanned the area through his binoculars, searching for desert bighorn sheep. After a long wait, he still couldn't find anything. Meanwhile, Maddock kept distracting him. Then, without any warning, Maddock suddenly fired his rifle. Ben had never told him to shoot. Both of them immediately rushed toward the sound, only to discover an elderly local prospector lying on the ground bleeding from a gunshot wound. Ben recognized the old man instantly and rushed to save him. He sprinted back to the vehicle to grab the first aid kit. Meanwhile, Maddock stood there in complete shock, realizing he had just committed a serious crime. Panicking, he quickly called one of his associates and admitted what had happened, fearing that he was now in very deep trouble. His partner immediately tells him, "Shoot that old man one more time, but use Ben's gun instead of yours." Maddock does exactly that. Hearing another gunshot, Ben rushes back and is horrified to see that the old man now has 2 bullets in his body. He angrily asks Maddock why he did it. Maddock calmly replies that now they're both responsible. One bullet came from Ben's rifle and the other from his. Ben immediately realizes that Maddock has trapped him to save himself. Maddock then offers Ben a deal. He promises to pay him $300,000 every year and even get him into a university so he can move to the city and live happily with his girlfriend. Thinking about his future, Ben reluctantly agrees. Together, they bury Charlie's body in the desert, say a short prayer, and return to their vehicle. While Maddock wastes precious drinking water washing his face, Ben becomes frustrated because water is the most valuable thing in this scorching desert. Quietly, he walks to his backpack and pulls out a small emergency device that can send an SOS message to the sheriff. But before he can use it, Maddock catches him from behind and points a gun at him. Furious, Maddock reminds Ben about their agreement and accuses him of breaking it. He crushes the emergency device under his boot, destroying Ben's only way to call for help. Then, at gunpoint, he orders Ben to remove all of his clothes and boots. With no other choice, Ben obeys. Maddock forces him to walk barefoot into the burning desert, knowing he has almost no chance of surviving. His plan is simple. Ben will die from the unbearable heat and dehydration, and the murder of Charlie will be blamed entirely on him. Since one of the bullets in Charlie's body came from Ben's rifle, the police will believe Ben killed Charlie, fled into the desert, and eventually died while escaping. Left completely alone, Ben begins walking across the scorching sand. After some time, he reaches a numbered marker and continues moving forward despite the unbearable pain. Maddox watches him the entire time through his binoculars. He has no intention of leaving until he sees Ben die with his own eyes. When Ben finally reaches the second marker, he suddenly disappears behind a group of rocks. Maddox notices this immediately and drives toward the spot. But when he arrives, Ben is nowhere to be seen. Ben has actually discovered a hidden underground bunker built inside the rocks. It belongs to Charlie, the old prospector who was killed earlier. Inside, Ben finds food, clean water, and survival supplies. He desperately drinks water to save himself from dehydration. As he looks around, he notices several old photographs hanging on the walls. One of them shows him standing beside Charlie. The old man had always treated Ben like a son. Overcome with guilt, Ben apologizes through tears for failing to save his life. Just then, Ben hears someone entering the bunker. He quickly grabs a nearby map, hides it, and disappears into the darkness. Moments later, Maddox enters the bunker. He knows Ben is hiding somewhere inside, but instead of searching for him, he plants explosives and calmly walks back outside. Seconds later, a massive explosion destroys the entire bunker, burying it under tons of rock. But Maddox doesn't realize that Ben escaped just in time through a hidden exit before the cave collapsed. As Ben continues moving through the desert, Maddox suddenly appears in front of him. Smiling, he tells Ben that if he really wants to go home, he can keep walking. But if he tries to hide or escape again, he'll shoot him from a distance. Ben knows Maddox's rifle is powerful enough to hit him with perfect accuracy, so he has no choice but to keep walking across the blazing desert. The nearest town is 45 miles away, and Ben's only advantage is the map he secretly took from Charlie's bunker. Following it, he reaches an old resting spot where he and Charlie had once placed a couch. Since the burning sand has badly torn up his bare feet, Ben tears the foam out of the couch and straps it around his feet to protect them. This location also blocks Maddox's view, allowing Ben to disappear from his sight once again. The map reveals that it's actually a treasure map. Following the first marked location, Ben digs into the ground and uncovers a small box containing a slingshot and several marbles. He keeps them with him and continues toward the second marked spot. There, he finds a bottle of water buried underground. Completely dehydrated, he quickly opens it to drink. But before he can take a sip, Maddox fires a shot from a distance, hitting the bottle. It flies out of Ben's hands, spilling every drop into the sand. Ben realizes why Charlie had called it a treasure map. In a desert like this, nothing is more valuable than water. Forced to continue without a single drop to drink, Ben struggles forward while, in contrast, Maddox casually enjoys a cold drink from inside his vehicle, never taking his eyes off him. After walking for several more hours, Ben finally collapses from exhaustion. Maddox drives over to check on him and fires 2 shots into the ground beside him to see if he's still alive. Ben doesn't move at all, convincing Maddox that he's finally dead. Satisfied that his plan has worked, Maddox drives away. But the moment he's gone, Ben slowly gets back on his feet. He had only pretended to be dead. He starts making his way toward a cave where he and his girlfriend used to spend time together because he remembers there being water inside. As Ben climbs toward the cave, Maddox, who is talking on the phone with his partner, suddenly spots him alive again. Furious, he immediately opens fire. Ben barely manages to dodge the bullets and reaches the cave alive. Unfortunately, when he searches inside, the water is gone, leaving him completely devastated. Standing outside, Maddox shouts for Ben to surrender, claiming there's no escape. Instead, Ben decides to wait until nightfall. When darkness finally arrives, Maddox keeps his vehicle's headlights aimed directly at the cave entrance. Using another exit, Ben quietly slips outside. He notices Maddox drinking beside the vehicle and takes the opportunity to steal his jacket, knowing the desert becomes freezing cold at night. When Maddox returns to his vehicle, he immediately realizes Ben was there. He quickly starts the engine and reverses the truck. Ben is lying directly beneath it but barely escapes by rolling behind a group of rocks. Realizing Ben is still nearby, Maddox throws a deadly explosive straight toward his hiding place. Ben still has the slingshot he found earlier. He loads one of the marbles and fires it straight at Maddox's head, knocking him unconscious instantly. When Maddox wakes up the next morning, he finds himself tied up in the back of his own vehicle. Ben drives him straight to the sheriff and tells him everything that happened, including how Maddox murdered Charlie in cold blood. Ben also hands over the money Maddox had paid him to keep quiet. With the evidence and Ben's testimony, Maddox's crime is finally exposed. Ben confronts Maddox one last time and lets out all of his anger. A little later, Maddox asks to use the restroom. Moments after he goes inside, the sound of a helicopter fills the air. Ben rushes outside, only to see Maddox climbing aboard the helicopter and escaping right in front of them. Using his smartwatch, Maddox had secretly contacted his partner, who came to rescue him. After surviving the nightmare, Ben decides he'll never work as a desert guide again. He moves to the city, reunites with his girlfriend, tells her everything that happened, and promises to stay with her from now on. One night, while they're asleep, Ben suddenly has a terrifying nightmare in which Maddox is standing over him with a gun. He wakes up in panic only to realize it was just a dream, but the moment he closes his eyes again, he hears Maddox's voice for real. Maddox has broken into the house and is pointing a gun directly at Ben. Smiling, he says, "You escaped last time, but no one can save you now." Just as he's about to pull the trigger, Ben's girlfriend shoots him from behind with the pistol Ben had given her earlier, the one she always kept under her pillow for protection. Ben immediately grabs his own gun and fires as well, killing Maddox for good. With Maddox finally dead, Ben's nightmare comes to an end and the story concludes.